Okay, so today we're fighting with Awabo. Awabo, who actually did one of our jobs for us and managed to capture Captain Syrup before we could have given it a chance. But Wario's not about to be one-up by a giant bubble with a face on it, so he ends up supplanting Awabo for Captain Syrup in the final boss battle of this chapter. That is optional because it's an offshoot of the main story. Yes, Wario Land 2 is that awesome. Awabo, not so much. As we discussed in yesterday's video with Kamu Kamu, the weakness of Awabo pretty much falls into the same problem because the point that you're supposed to be doing is that you're supposed to be charging at Awabo while he's in midair so that you can balance him around the room and start to agitate his bubble so he will eventually pop. The problem is that Awabo's way of defeating Wario is that he traps him inside his own bubble body and then throws him out of the room. Therefore, while you're trying to deal damage because you have to run right into Awabo, it's actually really easy to miss and then end up getting swallowed by Awabo and forcing you to do the whole thing again. But if you get a pattern down, because Awabo is just bouncing all over the screen, it's actually really easy to get him into a pattern, which makes the boss fight a lot easier, and it'll just save you a ton of time. Awabo doesn't really have much beyond that to liven up the boss fight as he takes more damage, mostly just relying on him getting faster. But the problem with that is that Awabo's movement speed is almost entirely controlled by the player, because the player is just throwing him wherever they decide to go. Meaning that going faster and trying to be more unpredictable doesn't really work in this case because his movement is so predictable just by how physics and angles work that the player has already got his number by the time that he tries to shake up his boss fight a bit more. Plus, Awabo is a giant bubble. Okay? It's not exactly the best boss design in the world. Not saying that this couldn't work in another case, I'm pretty sure that Majora's Mask did something similar, and it ended up working a lot better, but Awabo, just kind of a dorky boss in of itself, because it doesn't have a good design. Yeah, the face is kinda generically fucked up looking, kinda like a melted version of a goblin, but again, you're putting that face on a bubble. Okay? And considering how the boss attacks, how it behaves, this doesn't really go away, and it just makes the boss fight itself look off-kilter, dorky, and not really something that you'd want to remember in the future. And trust me, design things matter. Like, the visual part of it matters, especially when the gameplay is backing up that visual and the visual itself isn't appealing in the first place. Hopefully one of the other chapters will have a better final boss fight, because Awabo here really isn't doing it for me.